call, please.
Chairman Frederickson,
Can't hear them. What's wrong with our audio?
Commissioner Cox,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
We can't hear you, Ann.
Commissioner McCoy,
We can't hear you.
Can you hear us? Okay.
some people can hear me. Can you hear me now?
Something?
It's garbled.
No, it's okay. We'll have to print your email and dial in on the phone.
Gary, can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Chair Frederickson,
Here.
Commissioner Cox,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy, Commissioner Goss,
Here.
Commissioner Noble,
Here.
Commissioner Keith, Commissioner Shores. You have a
Charmaine
quorum.
is here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got her.
Okay. All right, everybody, we're stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, item number 1, approval of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of March 10th, 2020. Review and consideration of approval of regular meeting minutes of March 10th, 2020.
I'll motion to approve.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none? All in favor? Aye.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Charmaine?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
okay. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I hear none. All righty, thank you. Item B, special meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2020. Review and consideration of approval of special meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2020.
I motion to approve.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? I hear none. Thank you. Item 2, consideration of public comments. Those who wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decisions at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431. And as this, we have no anybody addressed for the public comments. And then I'll read item A, public comment process. Residents wishing to comment must contact the city clerk, Annie Meredith, no later than 9 a.m. on June 9th, 2020. Comments will be accepted in written and standard audio format. Audio comments must be under 3 minutes in length and can be submitted to the city clerk by email at ameredith@cityofkingman.gov or by dropping them off to the city clerk office located at 310 North 4th Street. Residents can also watch the council and/or commission's meeting live streamed at youtube.com/City of Kingman or cable channel 4. Ann, did we get any?
We did not receive any public comments, sir.
All righty, thank you, Ann. Then I'll close that off, the public comment section. Thank you, everyone. And then item number 3, new business. Item A, RZ 20-0002. Rezoning case RZ 20-0002, a request from KX Ventures LLC, Ron Alt applicant, and Kingman Hospital Incorporated, property owner, to rezone 4 parcels of land from C3-PDD, Commercial Plan Development District, HMMC-PDD, Wallapai Mountain Medical Center Plan Development District, and C2 Commercial Community Business to KC-PDD Kingman Crossing Plan Development District. The subject property is approximately 174.85 acres. The site is generally bounded by I-40 on the south, Santa Rosa Drive on the north, Wagon Wheel Drive on the east, and extending approximately 640 feet east of North Sage Street. The property is generally described as portions of section 9 and 10, T21N, R16W of the GSRM, Mojave County, Arizona. Richard or Gary?
It's gonna be me. Good evening, Commission Chair and members of the commission. I don't have a booming voice like the chair, so let me know if you can't hear me. I'm trying to speak as loudly as I can. Thank you for having me tonight. And as the chair mentioned, the case before you is RZ 20-0002. The request is for 175 acres to be rezoned to the Kingman Crossing Plan Development District. And I've provided a PowerPoint for tonight, and I'll try to switch to that and not shut everything off. You might need to press space bar. Next one. Okay, just a background, just a 2-slide background to the case we're considering tonight. Begins with in the early 2000s with the idea and approvals of the concept of the interchange called Kingman Crossing Interchange, and those years culminate in 2016, January of 2016, Ordinance 1806 was created, and that ordinance created the Kingman Crossing PDD new section of the zoning ordinance. So it was a text amendment, and then also that same ordinance adopted the boundaries of the Kingman Crossing Plan Development District map, and that is shown on your screen right now. The area south of what is that large roadway is I-40. So south of I-40.
Any slides? Does anybody else see the slides?
Gary, you're not currently sharing your screen.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to press escape.
Would you like me to share the map for you?
I have a PowerPoint I'm sharing. Where's the meeting go?
Hold on,
Okay.
Ann.
Well, I think we have it.
Oh.
Okay, share screen, is that what you have to do?
Where is it?
The green?
The green.
Oh, there you go.
And you click on that and hit share, this should be it.
There we go.
Does all the commission members, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You just give it a second. Let's go past that slide. Okay, as you probably heard me mentioning, the original Kingman Crossing PDD was adopted in January 2016 with a text amendment to the zoning ordinance and with a new map defining those boundaries of the Kingman Crossing PDD. And on the presentation you're looking at, the areas south of I-40 in that sort of gray with a red boundary were the original boundaries of the Kingman Crossing PDD as adopted in 2016. Next slide. The original concept plan is included here on this slide and shows south of I-40 a mix of retail, office, multifamily, commercial office, business park, and it shows the interchange and potential roads to the south and also open space. And so that's the original Kingman Crossing PDD in a very small nutshell for you. As I showed you, the current or the approved sites are 76 acres and 52 acres south of I-40. The proposal tonight is for an additional approximately 175 acres of various zones being changed to the Kingman Crossing PDD zone. And next slide. As you can see on this slide, I've highlighted where the current zones are, and that is the bulk of the current site is zone C3 PDD, which in a lot of ways is very similar to the Kingman Crossing PDD to the south. There's also the HMMC PDD, which was associated with the Wallapai Mountain Medical Center PDD approved in the past, and a portion of that is being requested to be incorporated in the Kingman Crossing PDD as well. And then further to the east, is a pinkish zone you can see. That is currently zone C2, which is one of our middle commercial intensity zones. And so that's what's highlighted in the yellow boundaries is the proposal for tonight. Next. For the proposal, I don't know why I mix between yellow and red, but in the red highlighted areas is the boundary of the PDD proposed, and it shows the 2030 general plan designations for the property. As you can see, the bulk of the property is designated identical to the property to the south, and that's regional commercial. And then the property to the east is also, it's community commercial in the red with some interference with lines. I'm not sure how that occurred, but the predominant color of red or dark red is community commercial. Currently, the site is served by what has been extended through Santa Rosa and the development of the hospital, and that would be water and sewer to the western half of the property, and then water throughout the eastern portions of the property, but no sewer as of yet. And the roads are provided, as I mentioned, Santa Rosa currently, and with the proposed Kingman Crossing Boulevard and interchange. Here are some site photos we took when we posted the property for public notice. The top left photo is looking, you're actually in Kingman Crossing Boulevard, looking southwest. And then the property, or the picture to the lower right, is a picture looking west, and you can sort of see the hospital in the far right there. And I-40, you can see some trucks up there. Next. The analysis portion of this is in your staff report. And I mentioned early that the intent of the Planned Development District, PDD, some of the highlights is that it increases compatibility within and without the development. It has, the PDDs are generally more compliant with the general plan because you can sort of focus in and put together uses and roads and networks that are more cohesive. Also, you can, in a PDD, you can depart from provisions that are specific to zoning classifications, such as in the case of the Kingman Crossing PDD, there's a limit on truck-oriented uses, large truck and truck repairs and truck stops, for instance. And then also a PDD can help you adopt, or it's implemented through the adoption of what we call a development plan. And at this stage, it's called a preliminary development plan. Next. The intent of the KC PDD, or the Kingman Crossing PDD, is to provide development and services for the needs of the Kingman Crossing interchange, which is still to come. Also, the PDD, the KC PDD, increases the compatibility between commercial and non-commercial uses through things such as design standards, setbacks, increased setbacks. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, for PDDs, it assists you in adopting your development, your general plan, but also at the bottom here, I mentioned that it's the KCPDD is through the adoption of a development plan. And this is a large site, so I did my best at presenting this on a PowerPoint slide, but you all have a copy of what is here is the preliminary development plan. And I've also provided you with a PDF version of it on the city's website, so you can zoom in and see what the various uses are. And again, this is a preliminary development plan that will, I mentioned later on, this might be implemented in phases, and I'll discuss that later. But you can see here on the development plan, large lot commercial to the west, anchor stores throughout the middle of the development, and then to the east, the applicant may speak more to this, but there was less specifics as far as potential development right now. Next. The need for the uses in the KCPDD, with the new interchange, there will be a creation for the need of more commercial and residential uses almost immediately. And then within the need of the uses in the KCPDD, the PDD will provide a mix of uses that will complement the area, which also has a mix of uses such as the hospital currently there, residential 6,000 square foot lots to the west, larger lots to the, there's a large 4-acre lot to the west, lower left-hand corner of the development plan. You can see that. Not on this slide, I'm sorry. To the north, of course, is the Kingman Crossing subdivision. And also to the east is the subdivision. Vistabella? Yes, Vistabella subdivision. And then to the further east are undeveloped parcels of land. Next. Suitability and compatibility of the KCPDD. This will accommodate the growing needs of the community, the growing needs for residential and for commercial retail. As I mentioned earlier, the suitability and compatibility of this will limit truck-oriented land uses. The KCPDD will implement design standards that are not seen elsewhere, specifically in the community. And then also the larger lots to the west will also buffer some of these uses to the residential to the west and to the north. Conformance with the general plan, the land uses comply with the general plan map. That's one of the first things we look at. Second, the PDD will promote orderly growth that supports a variety of land uses. The PDD will encourage a planned mixture of land uses. And also, a goal of the general plan is to encourage nodal development. And this is a more orderly nodal development at an interchange and makes sense from a smart growth perspective. Next. The recommendation from staff is approval of the requested zone change, the KCPDD, subject to the conditions of approval. Those are listed here in fine print. Most of you probably can't read all that. I did list them in your staff report. Staff recommends those various zones that are currently zoned to be changed to this, the Kingman Crossing Planned Development District, subject to those 5 conditions of approval. 4 of them are included in your staff report. The 5th one at the bottom is a new one, and I will jump to, can you press 2 slides forward? That final 5th condition is new to you. It says the final development plan may be submitted in phases. Such phases shall be referred to as phase development plans, and each submittal shall follow the approval process for a final plan or final development plan as outlined in the zoning ordinance. This condition helps this approval, potential approval, be more in compliance with the development agreement that the city has entered in with the applicants, the landowners. And with that, I stand for questions.
Does any commission members have any questions for Gary? I hear no one has any questions for Gary. Any commission members?
I guess I have a question. Gary, why would we want to do the phased development plan versus approving the development plan? I don't quite understand that.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The preliminary development plan is what's before you tonight and would be approved if this is approved by council in July, the preliminary development plan. With the implementation of a PDD comes later through the final development plan, and in the development agreement with the landowners, the city has anticipated that there will be phases to the implementation of this preliminary plan. And so that's why the phased approach is, I think, anticipated in the development agreement, so that they're not locked into a final development plan that isn't as complete as we'd want it, as the market changes and the demands are different, so they can do it in phases. But the preliminary plan will stand as the governing document. They can always come back and amend that. But for future, for implementation of final development phase plans, those will have to come in individually through the planning and zoning and the council for approval.
Okay, so you're saying if we do the phased approach, then at each phase, they have to come back to us and we have to make sure that it's in accordance with the plan?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So you're saying everything in the phase in phases all follows under the guidelines of the general 2030 general plan. And then it'll be any changes if there is during the phase project, as long as they follow in coordination with the general 2030 plan.
Well, specifically, it's the preliminary development plan that you saw on the slide tonight.
Yes,
That's what will govern the future development phases that they come in with.
okay. Is there any further questions from the commission members? I hear none. I understand the applicant is present, would like to say anything? Oh. I'll open this up to a public hearing. Was there any comments at all, Ann?
I believe that Mr. Ruggles received all comments ahead of time for the public hearing. I'm not sure if they were for this specific
No,
case.
that was for the other ones coming up.
I have not received any public comments for this hearing, sir.
Thank you, Ann. I see no public comments. We'll close that out. Is Ron Alt?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like to present anything different, or?
Well, I would just like to say I appreciate everyone's cooperation in this. Obviously, the last 3 or 4 months have kind of thrown us a little curveball, as it has almost everyone through the state and the country. We're getting good response. I appreciate the willingness to be somewhat flexible on this. We've reviewed the entire report here and are in agreement, and we're anxious to continue this and get over this little COVID deal.
Does any commission members have any questions for the applicant? I hear none. All right, thank you, sir. Ron, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussion among the commission members.
Yeah, we're seeing everybody.
Chris, Charmaine, Elizabeth,
Yeah,
do we have any comments, any discussion on this proposed zoning ordinance?
I don't have anything to add.
No, I don't have anything to add either.
Charmaine? Where'd Jed go? Jed?
I don't have any comments.
Thank you. All right. I need to ask for a motion.
Yeah. Might say Sherman, you mute.
Charmaine, you're muted on your end. There you go.
Okay. All right, thank you. I unmuted it. So on the, to make a motion that we approve, I'm having a little bit of difficulty in this end with the whole Zoom, a little bit, so somebody else can make the motion. I'm in agreement with it. I just don't, I want to make a motion that we approve what's been put before us. I just don't have everything, how to, the exact wording in front of me on the motion that you want to approve. We can approve the final development plan. I mean, submitted in phases. Is that how I would address this? Can
Well,
you all hear me?
Do you want to
Yeah.
approve as recommended?
Yeah, as recommended. Yeah, as recommended. Yes. So,
I have a motion. I need a second.
Okay, so is Charmaine, is her motion that we recommend, that we accept the recommendations in that fifth
From the planning and department?
with the phases?
yes. Yeah, I mean, yes, that's my recommendation. Yes, that's my motion. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Aye.
Who was that? Jen,
Chair Frederickson, would you like me to do an actual roll call vote for this?
please.
Chair Frederickson,
In favor?
Commissioner Goss,
In favor.
Commissioner Keith,
In favor.
Commissioner Cox,
In favor.
and Commissioner Noble.
In favor?
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ann. All right, thank you, everybody. All righty. Item B, GP 20-0001. Minor general plan amendment case, GP 20-0001. A request. Are we still?
Go ahead.
We're good? Can everybody still hear?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, a request from KTH Consulting and SDIP VB LLC, Kingman Development Partners LLC, JBS Investments LLC, and Lee E. and Gail M. Bruno, trustee ETAL property owners for approval of minor general plan amendment known as the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. The proposal would modify the current land use designations by moving and reducing areas designated for community commercial, neighborhood commercial, and medium density residential, 3A to AC, removing intermediate density residential, 9-16 DUAC, revising parks, open space, and adding light industrial and manufacturing industrial land uses. The subject property is approximately 1,323 acres and consists of 2 sections. The property is generally described as portions of the sections 3, 4, 10, 11, 13, and 14, T21N, R16W of the G and SRM, Mojave County, Arizona.
Yeah.
Rich, you handling this one?
I am.
All righty.
Screen shared. Hit the next.
Yeah,
Can everyone see the
we can-
screen?
Yes, Rich, we can see it.
Good, okay. This is the minor general plan amendment case for the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. Next. The property owners are SDIP VB LLC and Kingman Development Partners, also known as Sunbelt Development, who are the property owners of the northern block of this area.
We have two other property owners in the southern block. They're listed on the screen. The applicant is Kathy Tackett Hicks. And this is a request for approval of a minor general plan amendment known as the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. It consists of two large blocks of land and is generally east of the Vistabella neighborhood and north, and that should be actually west of the future Rancho Santa Fe Parkway I-40 interchange.
Excuse me, Rich.
Yes,
Your slides are not progressing.
okay.
It looks like you have your PowerPoint open, but not on slideshow.
Let's just go up to slideshow and say from beginning. Okay, and then hit next. Okay, are they progressing now?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there are two areas or blocks to this general plan, a minor general plan amendment. First is the northern block. Consists of about 953 acres with 21 separate parcels. Is undeveloped at this time. You can see from this map, a significant amount of the land would be designated for manufacturing industrial development. There would be a buffer of light industrial and commercial between the manufacturing industrial and the medium density residential designation, closer to the existing Desert Willow and White Cliffs Middle School, as well as the area adjacent to Vista Villa. Next slide, please. This is the southern block of the minor general plan area, 370 acres. It consists of 4 parcels, 2 of which have a sand and gravel operation currently on them. Otherwise, it's undeveloped. You can see the mix of light industrial, manufacturing industrial designation, as well as a large area of open space that's intended to address significant drainage impact on this property from the Rattlesnake Wash. Next slide, please. And this is the full plan as presented by the applicants. You can see the Rancho Santa Fe Parkway running down the center between the 2 blocks. Again, the existing Vistabella areas to the west. The proposed interchange with I-40 at Rancho Santa Fe Parkway is just to the southwest of the southern block. Okay. Surrounding land use and zoning for the northern block, to the north, we have the Kingman Airport Industrial Park, which is actually outside the city limits in Mojave County, Zone AD. To the east is the state trust section with private land, which is vacant and zoned rural residential. Also, the area to the south of I-40 is rural residential. Between the block and I-40 is zoned RR. To the west is the Vistabella area, as mentioned, zoned R110. It also includes 2 schools, as well as a park site donated by the developer to the city. Those areas are all zoned R2. To the north of the southern block and the alignment of Diamond Joe Road and East Siesta Road, those areas are all zoned rural residential. Area to the east is BLM land, which is RR. South of I-40 is zone C2 and C3, and to the west is an area that's also vacant, zone RR. There's currently a city water tank on the property. The northern block of property was annexed in 1991 and 1992. The southern block was annexed two different times in 1990 and then in 2009. Development history: this northern block has had a series of master plans with hard zoning approved over the years. The first one was back in 1996, which was the expansion of the Vistabella master plan. It was expanded further in 2002 and was most recently redone with the Celebrate Homes master plan, which was approved in 2005. And this featured a mix of residential and commercial development. Large golf courses were proposed. There was no development that has occurred in the southern block. There's been no planning per se in that southern block up to this point. So this is the current Kingman General Plan land use designation for the area. You can see mostly medium density residential development currently, some commercial, a little bit of intermediate density residential, a little bit of industrial, but again, primarily residential currently. Next slide. The physical characteristics of the location is on a gradual slope. The slope is generally from the southeast to the northwest. There are several drainage impacts on the site. There's a couple of flood zones, as you can see, they're marked in purple on the map. Next slide, please. This is existing infrastructure in the area. Existing roadways are really Airway and Prospector Street, which the improved portions of those roads end at where the boundary of this site would be. There is some existing sewer and water to the south and west of the site. All this infrastructure would need to be extended into the site to serve future development, in particular the industrial development that would occur closer to Rancho Santa Fe Parkway. These are a couple of photos that were taken from at the site when we posted on May 21st. The photo or the aerial in the lower right-hand corner shows the photo location taken at the end of Diamond Joe Road. Next slide. And these are some photos taken of the site at the end of the paved area of Airway Avenue, also where we posted our public notices. We sent all surrounding property owners within 300 feet notice of the public hearing via first-class mail on May 18th. The property owner list was generated using the county's records. Public notice was published in the Kingman Daily Miner. We did receive, as of this morning, 27 written comments that were emailed and 3 phone calls in regards to the proposal. There are 3 comments that were highlighted in your staff report that you received, and the remainder of the written comments were emailed to the commission this afternoon. They were received after the report was completed. Just a summary of the comments we received, they are all from Vista Bella residents who are immediately adjacent to the site. Most of the concerns were over the R2 zoning that is proposed to occur to the east of the property and its potential impact on their properties. And generally, there is a desire to maintain the existing open space designation and zoning located east of Vista Bella, or a couple of the comments indicated there was a willingness to consider similar zoning to Vista Bella to the east, like an R110 zoning, which would have similar residential densities as in Vista Bella. There are comments from the city engineer and the county flood control. They're incorporated into the report. We didn't receive any other comments from any other department or agency. Next, please. This map just kind of shows the closer image of the area around Vista Bella. Where the arrow is pointing, that's the open space designation that is of interest to the residents in an area, either maintaining that or at least maintaining a similar zoning district on the other side of Roma Road. Next. So in the analysis, so the 30,000 foot level of this proposal, Sunbelt is requesting a minor general plan amendment known as the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. They were proposing some significant changes to the current land use designations. The plan would provide an opportunity for light industrial and manufacturing industrial land uses along the future Rancho Santa Fe Parkway between I-40 and the industrial park and airport. The parkway is envisioned as providing a direct alternative route to the park and the airport once the interchange is completed from I-40. The vision again would be to provide additional infrastructure into the area, as well as additional industrial uses, commercial and residential uses. The development of the area will provide an opportunity to mitigate some of the drainage issues in the area as well. Part of the analysis that we provided is that determination was made after some back and forth with the staff and with the city engineer that this request does not trigger any of the criteria stated in the Kingman Municipal Code that would require this to be treated as a major amendment. Even though it's a large area, we still are able to treat this as a minor amendment. Therefore, it can be heard tonight's meeting. This is the existing and proposed land use designations for the entire area. As you can see, there's a significant decrease in the amount of residential designated property within the area, going from 850 to 860 acres to about 110 acres. This would be a significant decrease in the potential number of dwelling units that occur within the area. At the same time, there'd be an overall increase in commercial designated lands, although it'd be redistributed from what the current plan would allow or show. The big change again would be the light industrial and the manufacturing industrial acreage would be significantly increased, as you can see from the chart there. There would be a decrease in the parks and open space designation as well. However, that would be in favor of trails and pathways that are proposed throughout the development, as well as park space, which is being donated to the city, as well as a passive recreation area possible in the drainage basins in lieu of a semi-private golf course in the current plan. So one of the requirements of the Kingman Municipal Code is whenever we consider changes to the general plan, we have to look at the consistency with the overall plan and see if it's consistent with the policies and objectives of the plan. So each of the following elements were examined for consistency with the plan. It includes land use, growth area, redevelopment and public facilities, circulation, parks, recreation, open space, cost of development, and environmental planning. Some of the highlights of that analysis is that, of course, there'd be an expansion of the industrial land uses for employment centers, expansion of infrastructure that would occur as this area develops. You would have the provision for an alternative access to the airport. They are proposing a proposed trail system for recreation in the area. And there would be actually an overall water use reduction by decreasing the amount of residential land use, as well as the decrease in the golf course type development in that area. So it was generally found that the amendment is consistent with the existing policies and objectives of the general plan. And the public safety, health, and welfare will be enhanced by the plan. However, as we mentioned, there were multiple residents in the Vista Villa area that expressed their desire to maintain the open space area to the east of their neighborhood, or at least maintain residential densities that would be similar to the neighborhood. So based on the findings that the application conforms to our general plan and would further the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Kingman, planning staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission consider the following options for the minor general plan amendment for the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. First option is to recommend approval of all land use changes as requested. Second option is to recommend approval with all land use changes, with the exception of the parks open space land use designation, which is located between Airway Avenue and Diamond Joe Road, immediately east of the Vista Bella neighborhood, which would be maintained with the current plan. If option 2 is chosen by the commission, that would mean that the O zoning would need to be maintained for this area, which is the subject of the rezoning proposal for the next case that you'll be hearing. So that's something to keep in mind. If option 1 is chosen, the commission could still consider recommending a lower density zoning district for the area immediately east of Vista Bella, such as R110, as the medium density designation that they are proposing would support R110 zoning. So with that, again, we show the full plan in front of you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, Rich, I have a question. How many residents were sent letters regarding the zoning change?
There were 90, I'm trying to think now, I think we sent out something like 91 letters, but not all of them were residents. Everyone that would be within 300 feet of the boundary of this location would have a letter. Although I did hear a few said that they did not receive one, but I don't know specifically who did not and what their circumstances are. We get our information from the county, and so it's possible if someone moved in recently, they may not have received a letter.
I was just curious, because that's a pretty large amount of letters in 27 residents, right? Was that 27 residents responded?
Yeah, 27 unique. And there were some cases where a husband and a wife would have sent in separate emails, but it was 27 unique property owners provided comments as of this morning.
And were they negative, or are they, saying that they're in opposition to this? Is that, or in favor?
Yeah, we sent copies of those comments to the commission this afternoon, or I did. The comments, generally speaking, were.
I got the letters. I just didn't see the other ones. Okay.
Yeah, the letters that you would have received were the emails.
Okay. All right. I didn't see 27 emails, but okay.
So those were all the written comments we received as of late this morning.
Any further questions of Richard?
Hey, Rich, question is, this is the same developer that is providing the park space just east of the school, correct?
It is.
So they're kind of exchanging the open space directly east of the subdivision with that new park.
Yes, that is occurring. The park space would be, sort of catty-cornered from the existing Vista Bella development. The park space that they donated to the city is not actually, even though it's shown on the map there, it's not actually part of the request for the minor general plan amendment or the zoning case. But so the numbers we have in there don't reflect that necessarily, the 60 acres. So if you add that 24 acres that they're donating to the city, it actually is more like 84 acres of open space within the area. But we didn't include it because it's not part of their request.
Richard, isn't, I believe, some of that property right to the east of Vista Bella a wash right now? So is that, so that's part of the designated open space? Or is that not taken in?
It's, well, it currently is a 60-foot wide drainage parcel, and it would be maintained as such. So there would be that, at least that open space area maintained. The current general plan indicates that the area of open space, I believe, is around 400 to 450 feet wide, which I believe does include the 60-foot wide drainage parcel.
Okay,
So the question is whether to maintain that whole area or not.
okay. Any other committee? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Do we have any information on the impact to the property values of putting industrial that close to their houses? Or is it just guesswork and that's why we should take into account what the homeowners are asking?
I didn't do that type of analysis as far as home impacts and home values. I don't know if Kathy, if you have any thoughts or comments on that. I think you're muted still, Kathy.
There you go.
So yeah, I do want to go over some of these areas right here. My name is Kathy Tackett Hicks. I'm acting as the owner's agent in this. The reason that the 24-acre park and fire department site isn't included because it was previously donated to the city, so the developer doesn't own it anymore. But that was specifically set aside to help mitigate some of the concerns about open space. That large, well, in fact, the previous plan had a large amount of open space for the golf course so that it could facilitate some of the drainage needs. There's a tremendous amount of water, and that's one way that you can move the water from one side to the other is in these greenbelt areas. Rich did a great job in explaining some of this, but on the Vista Bella, no matter what we do, there will always be a 60-foot open space buffer, which is this drainage area. The effective overall acreage of that greenbelt that runs around there is probably around 20 acres or something. So they donated the park site here. And I guess I would bring to your attention that although it is zoned O at this time, a portion of it, that is still private property and was not dedicated for public use. In fact, in the previous plan, it's kind of a quasi-public if it was part of the golf course. So that's not for people to be, getting on private land. By donating the parcel specifically, which benefits to the greatest effect the Vista Bella residents, they have a public facility that the city has accepted and is improving in some ways. So if we need to consider some type of adjacent zoning outside of that 60-foot buffer, I think we can, talk about that. But I wanted to be clear that the developer was mitigating some of these perceived open space areas, but the existing ones do not allow for general public use. That is still private property. So, the adjacent owners can't just use that property, and they wouldn't be able to in the future because it's private.
Kathy, are you talking about the almost 52 acres as zero, or are you talking about the 24.44 acres?
I'm talking about the green belt on the existing zoning maps that we have that kind of curves around that Vista Bella, that one that's been described as maybe 400 feet wide. 60 feet of that stays no matter what. It's part of the Vista Bella. So no matter what occurs on Bill's property, there's going to be a 60-foot open space area no matter what for their use. Continue using it as they are. And I don't think that a majority of those residents understood that. I think on the maps that we presented, it appeared that the development was going right up to the back of their lots and they would not have a buffer. But the fact is they'll have a 60-foot buffer all along there, which this development does not change. And we already reviewed that this open space designation is private property. It's not open to the public. So I think the homeowners had a perception that that open space was for public use, and that's not the case. So I just wanted to clear that up and then just identify that the developer has tried to mitigate and provide an area for the public of 24 acres to increase the infrastructure and the services in this area. This is the first park on this East Bench location, and it's going to most greatly benefit all the people in Vista Bella. And it is for public use.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm also confused about the open space designation. I thought that meant that the public was using it. I didn't realize that that was different. So I
Yeah.
appreciate clarification.
So Kathy, Rich, so basically, the individual that owns the open space is almost boxed in. So at what point, if he decides to, I guess when he decides ever to sell, then that's going to come before us and we're going to have to make that decision.
Well, on the open space, those are the general plan designation crosses property lines in that area. So that's like a conceptual drawing. Are you talking about next to the Vista Bella?
Yes.
Yeah, that crosses different properties. Let me get my maps out. I don't know if Rich has a copy, but that's not one single parcel.
Okay.
That's just a designation for zoning land use. And
Okay.
it was designed because there's water that comes through up there, you know, and there's existing drainage problems. So now we're looking at other drainage options and resolution to some of that drainage, which is going to make these large open space areas no longer necessary or not as necessary.
I'm very well of that area as I ride through there all the time.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other commission members have any questions with Kathy or Richard?
I have a question. I guess that also brings up, can we change the open space designation safely for the area, or does it need to be kept for drainage?
So there is a 60-foot wide drainage parcel that it currently exists there, and that will not go away, regardless of the designation on the general plan. That will be maintained. The question is just how. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I guess my question is that enough drainage space?
One of the things that they will have to take a look at when whoever develops this property is obviously drainage. It will depend on what occurs on the property. Their engineer will have to address that and make sure that whatever impervious surfaces they're creating with new development, that they are properly channeling and properly taking care of the drainage throughout the area. So it's possible there may be additional drainage parcels that will be required when that area develops. But for the moment, my understanding is that what's there is adequate to handle the drainage that flows through that area.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
And that would be correct. And the county or the city engineer and flood control will look at that to make sure that we don't, abuse that existing channel right there. So they will not let us put in additional water if the channel doesn't hold it. So that was created specifically to protect the Vista Bella people, and that continues. There was one other question on land values as well. So what we did, we carefully placed our residential areas, small commercial nodes around the existing residential areas in the school so that we would protect those. So on the north end of this, you're over a half mile away from any industrial, a little more than a half mile. On the south, it's, I don't know, a fifth of a mile or something closer. But those large residential areas were intended to protect the existing areas so that those residential existing are not butting up to that industrial.
Any other questions from commission members? All right, I see none. I'm going to open this up for the public hearing. And as stated before, as of this morning, the city planning staff received 27 emailed comments and 3 phone calls in regards to the minor general plan amendment proposed under GP 20-0001. All comments were emailed to the Planning and Zoning Commissioners this afternoon for their review. In general, the comments are from persons in the Vista Bella neighborhood who expressed opposition to removing the area currently designated as open space located to east of Vista Bella. We will make all comments received a part of the public record, and they will be attached to the meeting minutes. And then Kathy, since you've already addressed the commission members, and I think you outlined your concerns or about the open space and expressed to the community on the open space. So I think we got that covered. So I'm gonna close this off and open it up now for discussion amongst the commission members. Elizabeth, Charmaine, Jed, Chris.
I guess I don't really see why I would make a special designation for keeping the open space if it's not required and the residents really aren't allowed to use it. It doesn't seem to be in anybody's best interest. I don't know. I don't know. What does anybody else think?
Can you repeat that, please?
Well, yeah, I was just saying, since we had two options, one was just, approving the plan, and the other one was keeping that open space designation the way that it was. If that open space is private property that the residents aren't really able to use, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to keep that designated open space. Why not let the person who owns it use it if they can?
Charmaine, Jed, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. Being private property, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe this is a question for you. Even if it is open space, they could still fence it off and close it from public access, correct?
Right, the zoning and the designation and the current general plan simply allows them to do anything that's allowed under the recreational open space zone. So you can read off the potential uses. Parks, campgrounds, recreational areas, and open space, public assembly uses, public parking, wireless communication facility, all those are possible uses, or they could simply let the property remain undeveloped.
Yeah.
There's no requirement that they develop it in any particular way, other than if they do develop it, they have to develop it with uses that are permitted by either right or conditional use permit in that zoning district.
Okay. And there is the 60-foot drainage easement as well, so there is a small buffer.
So by if we go with item 1, we're not doing any harm to anybody since it is private property, and the Vista Bella residents were under the impression that was open space. So we're not doing harm to anybody if we go with item number 1. Chris, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, anybody would like to make a motion?
If you're speaking, Jed, I don't think your microphone's on.
We can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve minor general plan amendment case GP 20-0001 as presented by the planning staff. Item 1, recommend approval of all land use changes as requested.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I second.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? I see none. Ann, could you please call a roll call vote, please?
Chair Frederickson,
In favor of one?
Commissioner Goss,
In favor.
Commissioner Keith,
Can you come back to me?
I can. Commissioner Cox,
With the, yeah, with the condition, well, with the number one recommendation, yes.
Commissioner Noble,
In favor.
and Commissioner Keith.
Oh, gosh. Do I have to say, I'm undecided. I'm kind of on the fence. So do I have to say yes or no, or?
It is a roll call vote.
Yeah, so I'll say, okay, I agree. I approve, yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Kathy. All right, everybody. Item C, RZ 20-0004. Rezoning case RZ 20-0004. A request from KTH Consulting and SDIP BB LLC, Kingman Development Partners, LLC, JBS Investments, LLC, and Lee E. and Gail M. Bruno, trustees, ETAL property owners, for approval of the rezoning of properties located within the proposed Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. The proposal would change the current zoning by reducing areas zone C1, R2, and O, eliminating areas R1 through 6, R1-8, and RR, expanding area zone C2, I1, and I2. The subject property is approximately 1,291 acres. The property is generally described as portions of the sections 3, 4, 10, 11, 13, and 14, T21N, R16W of the G and SRM, Mojave County, Arizona. Richard?
Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's the same property owners as is in the last case. Same applicant. The requested action is to change the current land use, the current zoning in the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan. It would change the current zoning by reducing the area zone C1, R2, and O, eliminating areas zoned R16, R18, and RR, and expanding areas that are currently zoned C2, I1, and I2. The area subject to the rezoning is approximately 1,248 acres. Again, 2 blocks to this master plan area. The northern block, the proposal you can see here. The overall plan is 1,323 acres. The northern block is about 911 acres with 21 separate parcels. The areas closest to Vista Bella and the schools are zoned R2, or proposed to be zoned R2 and O. Then there is a buffer beyond those areas of I1 and C2 and C1 zoning. Those are commercial and light industrial zoning districts. That will then be buffered from the I-2 heavier industrial zoning. That's the plan in the northern block. Next. Southern block, mix of commercial, industrial, and open space to address drainage in the area. You can see on the map here. Next. So this is the overall zoning plan. Go next slide. This is the current zoning map based upon the, as I mentioned, the earlier master plan for the Celebrate Homes, which originally going to be a residential development primarily with large golf course, mixture of R1 and R2 zoning, some commercial and a little bit of industrial, but primarily it was intended to be a residential development. Again, this is the same slide you saw last time. We've already gone through the comments that were received. So go to the next slide. So this is the current zoning adjacent to Vista Bella. So below above it, you can see the Vista Bella area where you see the R110 zoning designation. That's the neighborhood. The area zone O that we talked about to the east. The Celebrate Homes master plan, again, mixture of R2, commercial, C2 zoning, C3, O for a golf course. I believe the O that was next to Vista Bella was not actually originally on their plan. I believe it was added to address concerns of the neighborhood in the area, but it was not actually part of the golf course. So we'll go to the next slide. So this is the existing and proposed zone designations in the master plan. You can see the difference should the zoning be approved. We would eliminate the RR district, which is sort of a holding zone in this area until the area develops. That would go away. The residential development or zoning would decrease significantly, as you can see, to about 111 acres. There would be a decrease in the C1 designation, but an increase in the C2, so there would be a net increase in commercially zoned property. There would be an increase in light industrial and a significant increase in the heavy industrial designation. So within the zoning ordinance, excuse me, when the P&Z Commission is considering changes to the official zoning map, they're required to make findings on following items. First item is the demonstrated need for uses permitted in the proposed zoning districts. The overall gain in industrial zone property that would occur with this plan would mean that the city would go from about 475 acres of industrial land, which is partially developed in the city, to almost 1,300 acres of undeveloped industrial land. So it'd be almost a threefold increase over what we currently have. There would also, as I mentioned, be a net gain of 62 acres of commercial land. The expansion of the industrial and commercial land uses as employment centers would be a net positive for long-term growth and financial stability of the community. So a need for these uses in these districts can be demonstrated. As I mentioned, the O zoning is proposed to be decreased, most controversially next to the Vista Bella area. However, most of the O zoning that was in the area was intended for a semi-public golf course. The areas that are zoned O in the current proposal would include a drainage basin for potential sports fields. Also, a trail and open space buffer system is proposed between the industrial and commercial areas and the residential areas. And as mentioned, there's also a park, which is not part of the zoning case, but has been donated to the city by Sunbelt Residential zoning generally will be decreased. However, the R1 zoning districts are proposed to be eliminated. R2 zoning does allow single family development as well as other types of moderate level multiple family development. So the suitability of the proposed zoning districts compared to current zoning districts, as I mentioned, it'd be changing from primarily residential to primarily industrial. The Rancho Santa Fe Parkway is envisioned as providing an access to the airport, industrial park, and to the airport with a lot of truck traffic. It would seem to be, from a planning standpoint, makes sense to have that truck route be primarily industrially developed. Also, under the current zoning, there's a significant amount of residential zoning near the Kingman Airport, directly to the flight path. Industrial zoning would appear to be more suitable for those areas closest to the airport. Staff would recommend that a condition be placed on the R2 zoning that is located north of Airway Avenue, that in future development would have a navigation easement to address any airport noise. The expansion of the commercial industrial land uses as employment centers, while still allowing for additional housing opportunities, seems to be a suitable balance to the area. Again, we looked at the compatibility of the proposed zones. As we said, Vista Villa is R110. There's a proposal for R2 zoning directly to the east, which is somewhat controversial. That district does allow single family homes as well as lower density multiple family uses with lots down to 6,000 square feet. The commercial industrial zones are located further north and east away from the residential uses, so as to reduce potential conflicts. The timing of the development of the commercial and industrial zoned areas should be tied to a notice to proceed for the construction of the Rancho Santa Fe interchange. This is to avoid having truck traffic and airway go through residential areas. And we mentioned the ozone concerns. The commission can, now that you've approved the plan as presented, the commission can consider, however, a lower density zoning district than R2 directly to the east of Vista Villa, should that be your decision. That's still possible under your earlier recommendation. And then conformance with the general plan, again, the proposed zoning districts will be compatible with the general plan as recommended to be modified.
Rich?
Yes.
Okay, so our other options, instead of these residents on Roma looking in their backyard at multifamily residential, what's our other options so that those people that have, bought these homes and, the last thing they want to do is go from looking at mountains to multifamily apartments.
Yeah, I'll answer your question in the next slide. We've got options
Okay.
for you to consider. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So based upon the findings of the report, and that the application is consistent with the policies and objectives of the general plan, planning staff is recommending approval of the proposed rezoning plan for the Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan with following conditions. One would be the issuance of building permits by the city of Kingman on any C1, C2, I1, or I2 zone property shall not occur until a notice to proceed has been made by ADOT and the construction has begun on the Rancho Santa Fe Parkway I-40 interchange. 2, the navigation easement would be placed on the R2 zone property located north of Airway Avenue prior to development. And then getting to Charmaine's question, optional conditions for the P&Z Commission to consider. Those are the options of either maintaining the O zone buffer, or now based upon your earlier recommendation, you could consider a recommendation for R110 zoning or any zoning, R16, R18, or R110, any zoning that would be less dense than the R2 zoning would potentially allow. R110 is the same zone as the Vista Bella area currently has. So that's why there is a possible optional condition for you to consider. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. Next.
Okay. Okay, so just to recap, option 3 you said it was, because it kind of moved. I was still looking at it. I'm sorry. You were saying that our option 3, I'm trying to, oh yeah, so option 3, conditions for planning and zoning commission consideration, maintain a buffer of some or all the currently zoned O recreational space located between Airway and Diamond Joe, immediately adjacent to Vista Bella. Some or all of the area proposed for R2 zoning located south of Airway and north of Diamond Joe shall be zoned R110. So instead of the R2, it could be R110. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that would be this area here in orange. That would be the area you'd be considering possibly maintaining the R110, some or all of it.
Okay.
So I'm assuming,
So
since we already determined that the 0 is private property and it's not open space to the public, that one's kind of already eliminated by us. So the only thing that we could do, as Charmaine is questioning or asking for the residents, would be to zone it R110. Would be the ideal logic. I'm assuming is that what you're asking, Charmaine?
yeah, because we have so much feedback from residents that don't want to look at multifamily apartment rentals in the back of their homes that they've spent and invested a lot of money into. And I understand it's a whole different, and I don't know if I should be discussing this now, but it's a whole different home ownership, and rental is completely different, you know, when you're, and so I can understand that there's a lot of concern over this.
All right. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have a question. Rich, I know you were talking before about having a trail or some kind of open buffer between the homes and the commercial zones. Is there any way to leave space to have a trail? Because I know people do like ride through there and things without necessarily keeping the whole O, but at least keeping a path through there.
Well, right now the drainage parcel is 60 in width. You know, certainly if the entire parcel is not needed for drainage, that could be something that could be explored, either a walking path or something, because that would be on city property.
Okay.
So the city could entertain something like that potentially. I obviously can't spend the city's money, but
right.
It would be there, you know, available potentially to put some type of, you know, park space, retail, something like that in there that could be, you know, periodically used for drainage, but also used for, you know, for passive recreation, something along those lines.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Richard, in this review, it does talk about trails and paths along Interstate 40. Do you have any idea what the proposal would we be looking at, or can we even see it on our fact-finding maps?
So, and hopefully you could see my cursor on the screen here, but there are a series of basically wherever you see I-1 abutting or commercial areas abutting the residential areas, that's kind of where the pathways are proposed to be. So up here, and then I believe along, I think it's Wagon Wheel Drive, I think there is some proposed areas. It doesn't necessarily show up on this map so much because this is the zoning map, but it does show up
Right.
on the general plan map a little bit more clearly.
Okay. Kathy, is there anything you would like to add, or does any of the commission members have any questions of Kathy?
I would like to clarify a few things if there's no questions. So the trails are set up to provide some alternative transportation options for the people if they're living in these residential, that they could by bike or walking or whatever get to these employment centers. So we're trying to reduce the use of vehicles. The trail systems are set up all around the residential areas, and they're designed to get from the residential to the schools and across the streets, and they're also designed for buffer areas. Right now, I just want to jump back to the Vista Bella issue, because we did speak about the ability to have the same zoning R110 fronting that area, if that would help. I want to also clarify that the apartment complex, when you have a residential units 3 to 8 per acre, that is not a big apartment complex. So 6,000 square foot lots, you can get, 6 houses to an acre. So there's a lot of single family residential. There are some duplexes, townhomes, but it's not, I don't want you to be envisioning, it's not the high density multifamily. It's the low density, the townhomes, the duplexes. And like I said, 6,000 square foot lots, you can get 6 to an acre. So we're not proposing anything outrageous, but if there is a concern, it was brought up by the adjacent property owners. I think that you already have their 60-foot physical barrier and open space. And then if we allowed for R110 homes to front that entire length instead of R2, maybe that would take care of any other opposition to this. And Bill Leonard, I think, is on this as well, one of the developers. If you had anything to add to that, Bill, but we did discuss that a little bit.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes, of course, we want to be a good neighbor, and we will be willing to make that concession to have the 10,000 square foot buffer lots along the alignment of the existing drainage facility. If that would please the neighbors, we'd be happy to do that.
All right, is there any other further questions of the commission members?
Not for me. I think it's very kind of
Does
them.
that answer your question, Charmaine?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I just said, yes, it does, and I'd be more in favor to the R110 personally, and as a commissioner, and I appreciate the property owners' cooperation in wanting to be the good neighbor and work with everybody.
All right, any other questions from commission members? All right, I see none. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Kathy. I want to close
Thank
out
you.
portion, and I want to open this up to the public hearing. And as in the first one, as of this morning, the city planning staff received 20 complaints and 3 phone calls in regard to the minor general plan amendment proposed under RZ 20-0004. All comments were emailed to the planning and zoning commissioners this afternoon for the review. In general, the comments are from persons in the Vista Bella neighborhood who have expressed opposition to removing the currently zoned O, recreation open space located to the east of Vista Bella. We will make all comments received a part of the public record, and they will be attached to the meeting minutes. So I'll close that off for the public hearing, and I'm going to open this up now for discussion amongst us commission members. Charmaine, Chris, Jed, Elizabeth.
I guess I could use a little clarification on what the motion recommendations would be. Could you flip back to that slide, Rich?
It's up there.
Okay, thank you. So if the recommendations would be, we would be recommending approval, but with the conditions 1, 2, and 3A. We could use all of them. We don't have to pick one.
No, well, conditions one and 2 are recommended by the staff.
Yeah.
Then you have the options of conditions 3A or 3B. It looks like, well, I don't want to.
Items 1 and 2 is pretty much, I think we want to stay along and lock those in.
Okay.
It's whether, Elizabeth, do we want to help the neighboring residentials there in Vista Bella by giving them an R110, which Kathy and Bill said they would have no opposition if we were, and that helped get this this zoning further along. So,
If I may, Commissioner, if I may. So the offer was to put buffer lots along the alignment. So we wouldn't want to zone the entire property R110. We would like to maintain the consistency of the adjacent community, add that as an additional buffer to the drainage facility to preserve that rural.
thank you for the clarification, William.
Okay, thank you. I was just making sure I didn't need more clarification on 1 or 2. Those are just good the way they are. Thank you.
Yep. Any other discussion? Jed, Chris, Charmaine?
I don't think so.
Okay, I need a motion. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll motion to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning plan for Rancho Santa Fe Gateway Master Plan with the following conditions, 1, 2, and 3B, that we changed that zoning to R110 along the line of the houses that are already existing.
With the buffer zone that's already included?
Yeah, well, the one that with the buffer of adding the R110 that was
Right.
offered.
There's already a buffer zone included, so we're not recommending the whole area be 110, but it'll be along with the buffer zone. Is that correct?
I think we, oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if that was offered. Can we, because the area, okay, maybe I'm confused. The area that is currently zoned O is that area that's private property that they can't use.
Right. The way I understood is Bill offered, because we already have a existing buffer zone, they would go along with an okay for the R110 as long as we're not taking over the existing. This will be added with the R110. If you follow.
So,
No,
well,
I think there's
50-foot drainage buffer, correct? That's the only one we're talking about,
There's
right?
a buffer there, and it'll be along also with the R110.
If I understand Mr. Lindhart's offer correctly, there is an existing 60-foot wide drainage parcel that the city already owns. That's not part of the zoning case before you. So that 60-foot will remain. And then he was offering a buffer of R110 lots beyond that. And then the remainder would be R2. I believe that's correct.
That's correct, sir. Thank you.
And so everything along behind Roma would be not R2, but R110, correct?
Correct, if that's our recommendation.
That's the recommendation. No, okay, that's what I was checking. Okay,
So you
okay.
recommending that
Is that what you're
Elizabeth?
saying?
Yes. So yes, I would recommend, that's what I'm recommending, that we do 1, 2, and then that we have that buffer of R110 right behind the current residential. Well, the 60-foot buffer is there, but then beyond that we have the R110.
Correct. All right, I have a motion. I need a second.
I would second that motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? I hear none. Ann, could you please call for a roll call vote?
Chair Frederickson,
Favor?
Commissioner Goss,
In favor.
Commissioner Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cox,
In favor.
and Commissioner Noble.
In favor.
Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everybody. Okay, item number 4, announcements by commission members. Limited to announcements, availability, or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. No discussion on any of these items.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just mention,
Yes.
just for anyone that might be watching, the location of the council meeting that will consider the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations tonight, all three cases, will be at the Board of Supervisors meeting room on July 7th at 5 p.m. I guess it's pending Board of Supervisors approval, but my understanding is that will be an in-person meeting, not a virtual meeting, but an in-person meeting. So anyone wishing to comment further on any of these cases can attend the City Council meeting on July 7th at 5 p.m.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements or comments from the commission members? All right, I see none. I need a motion for adjournment, please.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I have
I'll
a
second that.
I have a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.